Welcome to the EQ Video Tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter. As always, thank you again for joining us for a terrific show. Today's show is going to be great, but before we get into it, let's review the goals of EQ Video Tip. So what's on tap for today? We're going to talk about an article from Amy Beecham, which talks about you're a people pleaser. And these are some signs that you're way too nice and you're impacting your own well-being. Now, we have to be very careful about that because we do want to be nice, but at the same time, we don't want to be a people pleaser. So we're going to find a way to find that good balance between being too nice and being a people pleaser versus overbalancing one side versus the other. It's a tough balance to strike, but it is important that you figure out ways to both be nice to people, but at the same time, don't hurt your overall well-being. Let's jump into some of Amy's tips, and we'll go from there. Tip number one, you'll drop everything that you're doing to help another person out, even if it means sacrificing something important to you. Now, this is a classic people pleaser type thing. You're working on something, a colleague comes along, and all of a sudden you just say, sure, I'll drop whatever I'm doing because what you're doing is more important. Now, the needs of others can come before you, so you have to prioritize, but there are certain needs that are more important and other ones that are less. It could be a sign that you're one-sided in terms of your relationships and you need to have clear boundaries. So before you just say yes to someone, understand where you are in terms of priorities that are out there and where their priority lies as well. Again, saying no or right now I'm too busy is okay in terms of not being a people pleaser, but not being a jerk to somebody else as well. Tip number two, you feel overly responsible for other people's feelings, and in doing so you'll go to any length to not cause pain, even if that means not standing up for yourself. So think about this. There's probably times where you find yourself as the mediator or somebody who just doesn't stand up for exactly what's right or what you know is right. Instead of doing that, you just try to please them with a yes or okay, or you let something slide by that really shouldn't. Take a moment to think through those things and identify where those gaps might be in your niceness. It doesn't mean that you can't be nice, and it doesn't mean you have to be mean about it, but sometimes you have to stand up for yourself as well. So take a moment to think through those things as well to ensure that you're not just being a people pleaser. Tip number three, you often forgive easily and allow people to remain in your life even if they repeatedly are harmful to you in terms of their patterns of what they're doing, or they have toxic negativity within you as well. And you'll tell people that it's okay, and you'll even comfort them after they hurt you, even though it really isn't something that you want to do. You need to think about this because forgiveness is important in life, and you should forgive people, but only the people who deserve it, the people who are actually genuinely apologetic and genuinely care about you as well. If you have, for example, a toxic friend who keeps coming back and causing you harm or strife, or a worker that keeps doing something that upsets you, it's okay to cut them off because at some point you have to stand up for yourself as well. But again, doing so in a nice way, but not a people-pleasing way as well. You need to honestly think to yourself that you need to have clear guidelines and mutual respect from different people to ensure that you're not just being a nice person and a people pleaser, but you have a backbone as well. Our next tip. When you think someone's upset with you, you begin to become a people pleaser. You try to compliment them, you try to work harder for their approval, and instead of actually working through the disagreement, you're actually accommodating them. And it can be difficult to remember in the moment because you want that person to like you and to be happy with you. But if someone's behaving badly, in fact, what you should be doing is not modifying your behavior, because when you do that, you're setting an unhealthy precedent that it's okay for them to not behave the way they should. So instead, don't be that people pleaser to ensure you don't allow that behavior to go on. our last tip. You have a fear of being labeled as selfish or not empathetic for having reactions that are maybe not so nice. That might be criticizing someone's work, or telling them that they're not doing a good job, or saying to someone they need to rewrite a paper or they did their work wrong. Whatever it might be, you have to be okay not being seen in the best light possible. But there's a way to do it in a nice way that still shows empathy, and something where you can say to someone, hey, this wasn't your best effort, or I've seen you do better work. Again, you don't have to be a jerk, but you also don't have to be the people pleaser that says, okay, well, it was just good enough, we're going to let it go. Again, it's a hard thing to practice, but when you put it into practice, people will respect you more because they'll see you as still being nice, but at the same time being a tough critic to ensure you're getting the best out of your teammates and your colleagues. That's a wrap for this week's EQ video tip. Hopefully you enjoyed these tips. Here are some of the tips that we went through today, as well as some others. Again, make them yours so that you don't become that people pleaser out there. We hope you enjoyed this video, and again, we look forward to seeing you again at the next one. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.